school, I want you to think about what your middle school experience is like. And I put the rotary phone up there as a joke, but there are some people who probably used the rotary phone back in middle school, you know, in the closet around the corner with the cord, and mom made her lift it up the other side to listen right to the receiver. So what was your middle school experience like? Anyone want to share? You want to go travel back down memory lane? No. You're like, no, we're done with that phase, right? There's a reason why, right? So, again, so even if you had this rotary phone, or maybe you had the touch dial, right? Mom and dad were probably able to monitor your phone usage a little bit more frequently than someone who has a cell phone. You probably were playing outside or face-to-face with friends a lot more than our students might be now in middle school. So thinking about how the social dynamics have changed from when you were there to now where our students are. And really, their social scene exists on their phone, right? And oftentimes it is within social media. So there's, you know, everything exists, their phone is their life, God forbid you take away their phone. And let's all hang out, but let's all be on our phones and like, you know, text each other and Snapchat each other, but let's not really talk, right? And then selfies, a million selfies. So this is a new world that your student might embark upon as they go off to middle school. And I know you're shaking your head, yeah. But this is their new world, and I think, you know, it's a blessing and a curse. Our students are able to use technology with a lot more ease than probably we were able to, but then they're also not really ever able to disconnect from it. And that's where we have to kind of step in as our parents and caregivers. Let's talk a little bit about how it's changed. So, raise of hands, who's sixth grader, rising sixth grader, has a cell phone currently, or we plan to get them one? So a little more than half. So they'll probably be asking you if they haven't already, if their student hasn't asked. So they're going to navigate a new world with your student through a cell phone or through the use of technology, and that's kind of normal. That's where they're kind of seeing their social space is through their phone. Most often texting, a lot through social media, some phone calls, FaceTime. That's how they're going to be interacting with peers. They're not necessarily riding their bikes until the sun comes down and going home, right when the street lights come on. It's really going to be about kind of that social connection through technology. You're going to see friends that are going to shift a lot. So some friends will be reunited from sports groups or elementary schools. You might see old friends come back into the picture, new friends come back into the picture, and that's all completely normal. There's no longer a thing called a play date, and if you say the word play date in front of your middle schooler, they are going to roll their eyes and groan. It's now like this new hanging out, and that could be like hanging out with friends, or that could be like hanging out dating. Sometimes you might have to have them define what that means, but it's a new kind of world that they're stepping into, and we're going to help try to navigate that space together, both at school and at home. So the first part, like to tell parents, is about creating guidelines. So you are the person who pays that cell phone bill, right? So you can develop the rules about what cell phone usage looks like. And I think it's really important, especially as they're becoming this new independent person who wants to make their own decisions, is communicating what your expectations are around the phone. You are the driver, you get to make the expectations, but I think it's really important to communicate what those expectations are so there is no gray area. Establishing appropriate phone times when they're allowed to use their phone. So phones are not allowed at KP. We expect them to come in for the day, they're hopefully turning it off and putting it away in their locker. And I think that more often than not, our students are abiding by that rule.
So it is sneakers, but
yeah.
It's not like, it's yeah. Much better.
I think it's helpful because they're able to separate themselves from their phones and from their Snapchat and from their video recording to really just be present at school. And that's, I think, really helpful for them to kind of tune in. But also think about what that looks like in your home. So are they allowed to be on their phone for endless hours at home? Do they need to do homework first? Are they allowed to use it in the car? Are they allowed to use it during dinner time? I think it's really important to kind of figure out what you think is appropriate in terms of when they can use their phone and where. I also think it's really important, I think sometimes we don't think about this, is determining where our student is storing and charging their phone. They'll say, oh mom, I need it in my room so I can wake up in the morning, right? That classic line. You can buy them an alarm clock too, right? So thinking about, I really would recommend not having your student have unlimited access to their phone, especially at night. I'm currently working with 8th graders, and I can tell you a lot of them are up pretty late at night, texting and chatting on the phone and on social media, and that just makes them tired. It makes them not tune into academics. It really affects them emotionally. So I really do think it's important as they have a phone, as they start using their phone more, where is that phone going to be placed at the end of the night? And I do recommend it being kind of within your control or in a central area outside of their bedroom. I really think it should be away from their sleeping quarters. Creating limits. So again, whatever that looks like, maybe they can be on the phone for an hour, then they have 2 hours of homework, and they can be on the phone again another hour. But really kind of describing what you think the limit should be. I don't think it should be unlimited use. I really think you should kind of figure out what is best for you and what's best for your household. And then discussing safe media usage. So what they're sharing online, is it their full name, is it their location, are their apps private? Having that conversation about what safe media usage looks like. And I think we should start that conversation early. The other group was like, oh my gosh, you overwhelmed us, but I think it's really important to start the conversation now before they're all super involved in some of these things.
Do you have some suggestions about like where we can go? I mean, I don't even know what to tell my son about safe online usage. Like I know what I do, but like is there some guidelines you can give us or places we can go to sort of?
I can get some resources for you. Sure.
Yeah, that would be a great kind of parent session.
Yes. So we actually are planning something with Kate Cummings. She's a state trooper that works for the district, I believe. So we're gonna have something in the fall, hopefully. She wasn't able to come tonight. We were aiming for tonight. So that will be something you should be on the lookout. And we were also thinking about maybe doing something for the parents, something for the students, and having them come together and you guys having a conversation as a whole group. So be on the lookout for that. We're hoping for the fall. That'd be something to be thinking about.
Does this conversation change at all with, I don't know if you're getting there with smart watches?
Oh, I didn't incorporate smartwatches, so that is a good thing to keep in mind.
Are you seeing that in the school?
They have them, but the teachers are kind of, because I was like, oh, do we ban smartwatches? I'm like, I'm not banning that. What we say is it needs not to be a distraction.
Okay.
So if it's a distraction, you know, sometimes, because you can cut off whether it's buzzing you and telling you to, so if we start to see a kid, we're going, you're being distracted, we need to have a conversation because it shouldn't be connected to that level. So we're trying to treat it that way, because the technology is changing. Even your Fitbit, someone says it's your Fitbit, it's not active, but it can still show you texts
Right.
of portions of them, and so cutting off notifications, so we do talk to them about it being a distraction, and it hasn't been. I mean, the kids are generally pretty respectful, but we have set those kind of boundaries around it, because also we have to be mindful of what we can manage here, but still letting them have the freedom that they have a watch on them. And most of them, we've had a couple of instances, but we just have conversations, and it seemed to kind of work.
I do think more often than not, students are respectful of the no phone rule. I mean, there are people that sneak it. Usually that's in 8th grade, not necessarily 6th grade. But I think more often than not, students are really putting their phones away and they're not utilizing it during the day, which is good. And I think it's helpful for them to really be able to focus on school. So we're really reinforcing you are the driver, you are the person that pays your cell phone bill, so you can create the rules. You should be managing their usage. Also, there are resources through your carrier. So I know, for example, Verizon has a Verizon Smart Family, and this is where you can limit how much time students can utilize social media. So you can have 11 o'clock, all of it gets cut off, they're no longer using it. So I do encourage you to use that if you feel it's necessary. But also just within your own household and in your own control is creating what smartphone usage should look like and having certain guidelines. By 9 o'clock, the phone's on the kitchen island, or by 10 o'clock, you know, I want your phone to be in my bedroom charging. Telling your student what that looks like. I do recommend checking their phones and messages and websites and telling them that you're going to check it. That, you know, I'm paying this bill, I want to make sure that you're safe, I will be monitoring your phone usage, I will be looking at what you're messaging to other folks. So you kind of know what's going on, who your student is talking to. Knowing their passcodes and passwords. Again, you are the one paying the bill, so you should know what the passcode is to get in. And then modeling good behavior. So if we're telling our student, okay, we're not having phones at the dinner table, but we're scrolling through Facebook as they're sitting there, it's again kind of modeling the behavior, because teenagers especially will remember what you say but don't do, and they'll call you out on it, right? So it's important to kind of set those expectations, but also follow them for yourself. The next thing, social media. So I was just telling the other group, I don't recommend that students in 6th grade should have social media, but again, this is a conversation you need to have in your household and something that you need to do that's within your comfort zone. But if you choose, or if you are allowing your child to have social media, is knowing the websites your student uses and also their functions. And I am constantly learning about new websites every day almost. So it's constantly a changing landscape, so I think it's important to kind of stay educated and checking in on what apps your student does have on their phone. So I asked some students today what the most popular ones were. I think Snapchat by far is the most popular in middle school. Is everyone kind of aware of what Snapchat is? So messaging, website, could be photos or messages. Instagram, which is mostly photo sharing. You can get likes, you can get comments, follow different pages. Twitter, I think, is a little bit less popular with students, but another site that they use. Apparently Musical.ly doesn't exist anymore, it's now TikTok, and it's a website where students can post videos, just kind of being aware of what they're posting. You see some heads shaking, so we're kind of aware of that one. And I think by far the one that blows me away, or the ones that blow me away, are these anonymous websites where students are posting things and then people are anonymously responding to them. So 2 examples are YOLO and Lipsy. So you can post a question and then students are able to respond without their name to the question. So when I'm talking to students and they're telling me about issues, I'm like, well, why are you on these websites to begin with? Like 9 times out of 10, it's not gonna be like you're beautiful or I wanna ask you out. It's gonna be negative things. And I think it's kind of like for the, that 1 out of 10 chance that someone's gonna say, oh, you're really beautiful, or I like wanna date you. That's why students are part of that. But I think it gets risky because then you have the anonymity and you don't know who's posting or who's responding, and it gets scary, I think, at that point. So again, monitoring if your student is utilizing those, maybe what questions they're asking, why they feel like they need to use them, those sorts of conversations can be had, yeah.
Can you trace IP addresses through YOLO and Lipsy? Like if an adult gets involved, because I know that like that turns into like group chats. I teach high school, and
Okay.
so we see a lot of like that forming into group chats too, which is also somewhat anonymous because they can choose their names, and that's where the bullying is happening. Like when we talk about bullying or we call it harassment in high school, like this is what we're seeing. Is it starting in these like apps, and can you follow them or not really? Like it's truly anonymous.
I don't think so. Like even Snapchat can be difficult
Yeah.
if they haven't built a history, and that's the danger, right? That's the concern. And so I always say if you're going to choose an app, and to the driver piece, choose one, and the one that you can manage. My child is in 8th grade, just got a cell phone. Like we literally just got her one. And she has Instagram, and I look at it, and I have a password. Snapchat, I just want to fit the filters. Nope, because I can't manage it. So you also don't have to give them everything at the same time. I like to learn apps and figure it out too before I even, you don't have to give everything, but for that purpose, you can't track all those, something mean is said, and you're going to be like, oh my God, who is this? You can't track it, and I just don't even have the wherewithal to even deal with the level of some of these things, so it's just easier for me right now to say, no, thank you.
That's why it's important to have the conversation, just knowing what your students are accessing. And
To
saying,
have
okay,
it
we're
first
not
is
doing this.
easier than to get it off of them afterwards. That's the piece, like if you can just kind of be strict, and then slowly, it's easier than like giving them the world and then trying to take it away, because that doesn't feel good for anybody.
Right.
And so we're gonna start slow, and then as you become comfortable, you can kind of add on in a way that's more reasonable.
It's also really important to know the lingo and abbreviation, so I'm like constantly like on Urban Dictionary, I'm like, whoa, it changes a lot of things, like things that seem innocent are not innocent. Emojis, for example, there's some emojis that stand for some sexual innuendo, so you want to kind of know what your student is posting, because it might look, oh, that's really cute, but you're like, whoa, now I know what that means, and it's not cute. And so you want to know what they're saying and how they're saying it. I do recommend following or friending your child on the social media site. So if they're going to do Snapchat, that you're following their story and you're saying, I'm following you, I'm going to see what you're posting, I want to know. I also recommend knowing their password though, so you're going to see it from both ends, because it's going to be different from when you're seeing it from a friend or a follower versus having their passcode and seeing the private messages or the private things that come to them. So I do recommend having both, and I think it's really important to tell your child, I am going to look at this. And so it's not a surprise to them, and you can say, I won't do it every day, but I'm going to check in. And that's my role as a parent. I want to make sure that you're safe. I want to make sure that you are representing yourself in an appropriate fashion. And then monitor the frequency and the posts. I think that's really, really important as we think about social media. And again, it's a conversation you need to be comfortable with having at your house, and also, where you want to, maybe you want to pick one and say this is what you're allowed to be on if they're talking about social media and not letting them sample the whole palette. So some concerns with social media, so some things we've learned over the years. So has anyone heard of Finstagram? Oh, there's like a word, I didn't know it was a thing. So oftentimes students will have an Instagram, which might be like linked to something related to their name or their actual identity. And then they'll have a Finstagram, with an F, a fake Instagram where they might only have a certain amount of followers, maybe some really close friends, and they might post some more risque things within their Instagram. They wouldn't normally post on something that's linked to their name. So sometimes they might post like controversial memes or things that are a little bit more controversial that they wouldn't put under their real name, but they would put under, a facade. So something to keep into account. Multiple accounts, oftentimes students will have more than one account. So again, kind of the same purpose, like this is what most people can see, and this is what an audience can see. There might be spam pages where students might create a spam under a fake name and then, message other students. So your student might say, like, this person keeps messaging me, I'm not really sure who it is. And it's really hard to track from that point of view, like, who is actually running the spam account if we don't know who the actual user is. So this is something to keep in mind. These might come up in conversations. Snapchat, are we kind of familiar with Snapchat? Sort of. So some features on there I just wanted to bring attention. So the idea of Snapchat, I think why students like it is because they can send messages and they disappear within a short amount of time. So I think students are feeling like, okay, I can send this and it'll disappear, or it'll go away after the whatever seconds it is. There is a feature on Snapchat that if students post something, it can be screenshot, and if you are the user and someone screenshots something that you post, you get a notification. What our students are now doing, because there's that feature, is they might have the person's post up and then use another phone, an old school screenshot, to take a picture of a picture. And so that way they have this, this maybe risque picture that's posted, but they're screenshotting it with another phone to keep it rather than doing the actual screenshot on the phone. So it's something to kind of just keep in mind, something to monitor. Another feature I just didn't realize that existed until recently is there's a My Eyes Only. So on Snapchat, there is a private camera roll where they can save pictures to it. It has a passcode to get in, so they can save pictures on a camera roll that needs a password to get in, so it's not like accessible to everyone. So that might be where they might hide pictures they wouldn't want everyone to see. So something to keep in mind. Another thing is there's a thing called ghost mode. So on Snapchat, there's a thing called a snap map, where it tracks where you are. If they go into ghost mode, they can't track your location. So this might be something that your student might do to you, if you're like tracking where they are, or they might do to a boyfriend or a friend so that they don't know their whereabouts. So just something to keep in mind as we're thinking about the usage of Snapchat. There's features that are coming out that you should be aware of. Obviously, you should always be aware of sexting and exchange of sexual messages or photos. This does happen in middle school, hopefully not 6th grade. It's my first time in 6th grade with your student, but it is happening in 8th grade. And so it's important to start thinking about, having these conversations with your student, talking about the repercussions, talking about the impact that could have. And if pictures are sent or exchanged, it can then become an issue of child pornography, right, or distribution of child pornography. And really realizing the impact if we're sending inappropriate pictures, what that could look like. It's important to start that conversation early. Online bullying, I think, the issue with social media and our phones is that sometimes we're putting on a facade, we're acting more bold than we would in real life. And so then people say things they probably shouldn't say, or say more than they would say in real life. So we might see more instances of online bullying, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And this thought of a digital footprint versus a digital tattoo. So I used to say the digital footprint you leave behind, but it's really a tattoo, right? Because if pictures are sent out in the internet, they're there kind of forever, right? And so we want to make sure our students are aware of that these pictures can resurface, and we need to be mindful of what we're posting and what we're sending to our friends, and just really thinking about that. Harvard, I think it was a couple years ago, rescinded 10 applications or acceptances because students were involved in a chat, I think over Facebook. They were sending racist and controversial memes back and forth to each other within this private group on Facebook. Harvard found out and they rescinded all their application packages and said, actually, if this is what you're doing behind closed doors, we don't want this kind of student here. So thinking about kind of the long-term impact, if they're doing this thing at the high school level, they might have to write about it on the Common App, so it could impact their college choices. So if there's disciplinary issues around online bullying or inappropriate social media usage, it's something they need to keep in mind that it can have an impact on their future. And that's down the road, because I know we're just middle school, but something again to keep in mind and start having that conversation with our children. And just really quick, this is like a really, really quick snapshot of what to do about bullying. So if a student is reporting bullying, they should certainly unfriend or block the person. They should certainly, one of the first steps would be to report to an adult, so a parent, an administrator, a school counselor. They can also report the individual to the site, so they can actually report them on the site, so on Instagram, websites. They should avoid responding or corresponding with the bully or the person instigating them, and should keep the record. So keep rather than deleting a conversation, keep the record in case we need proof or we need to do an investigation. So typically, if there's an issue, then we go to administration, and then depending on the severity of the issue, the police might get involved or a school resource officer might get involved. So just so you know, there is a process here that we do follow. And lastly, I really do think it's important as your student has a phone or is given a phone or has usage of a phone that you should think about a family media contract, and I'll show you an example of one, outlining what your expectations are. Can you guys read that? So this is just examples from Common Sense Media, and this is just a template, but you can also create your own. So having them, having you and your child outline what the expectations are. So the first is about taking care of their phone. So I will take care of the device I'm using and tell my family if it's broken, stolen, or lost. As a family, we have agreed on the consequences if I lose or break a device, and I understand those consequences. And having your students sign. Unless I paid for a device with my own money or as a gift, I understand that the device belongs to my family members who bought it. So you, again, are the driver. About staying safe, so some examples, it says, I will not create accounts or give out any private information such as my full name, date of birth, address, phone number, or photos of myself without my family's permission. I will not share my passwords with anyone other than my family. I will ask my family to help me with privacy settings if I want to set up devices, accounts, or profiles. If anyone makes me feel pressured or uncomfortable or acts inappropriately towards me online, I'll stop talking to that person and will tell a family member or other trusted adult about it. Thinking first, so that I will not bully, humiliate, or upset anyone online, whether through sharing photos, videos, or screenshots, spreading rumors or gossip, or setting up fake profiles, and I will stand up to those who do, or stand up, yeah. I know that whatever I share online can spread fast and far. I will not post anything online that can harm my reputation. Whenever I use, reference, or share someone else's creative work online, I will give proper credit to the author or the artist. I know that everything I read, hear, or see online, I know that not everything I hear, read, or see online is true. I will consider whether a source or author is credible. So it's just an example of a contract. And you can create your own, but I do really think it's important to kind of set the groundwork and let your student know where you stand on the topics of not only on their phone, but also social media. And there's more pages, I'm not going to read them all for you. Just a resource for you all. All right. I think we're going to transition back to the main room, but before we do that, does anyone have any questions about social media, about technology, about the social scene in middle school? Yes.
So this is my oldest, so we haven't been through middle school yet, but my plan is to not give him a phone until maybe the end of 8th grade, maybe later, see how that goes.
Yeah.
But does that mean he has no social life in school?
No, I don't
Everything
think
we just
so.
talked about under social life
They'll
was
say,
about a
right,
phone.
they'll say they do.
They'll say that probably, they'll report that to you. But I also think it's important about setting what the ground rules are. I want you to play with your friends, I want you to have a good time, you don't need to be connected to your phone.
And they have access to school email, they try to say do school things, but if you're comfortable with like, well, we can set up another email, your friends can contact you through that. My daughter and her friends who have phones, they can text to an email address, it's cumbersome, they work itself out. There's a way that it makes it work, and while they don't go on play date, you can still say, well, how are you getting in contact with them? What would that look like? Because you don't have access. Be mindful though, if you have a device like a tablet, or an iPod or something, they can still do everything just about what they can do.
They can download the apps.
Everything she said still applies to that. So just be mindful of that. If you do get, whether it's an iPod or not, at least with Apple, they have this beautiful thing called screen time. And you can set things, you can set apps you want them to be on times. Her phone goes down, the iPod goes down at 9 something for one person and 8:15 for the other. And anything else, they need to go, may I please get into, so no matter where I am in the world, it goes down. So you can also set up these things so I don't have to have these conversations. Like, it's there, it just goes down, and we do that on the front end. So it's come a long way than it had been before, too.
And they can still have a phone if you want to go that route and not have social media. There's ways that you can limit that too, or you can give them certain access to certain numbers. So it's whatever your comfort level is.
I've been educating
They're gonna-
myself about the
yeah.
dangers of social media. I just hadn't really thought about the dangers of not having social media, the flip side of it.
Yeah, they will
If
probably
they're
report like,
one of the
oh,
only
because
ones.
everyone has one, but it's really about your, well, there are students that don't have phones, and that's fine too, right? It's about what you want to do in your household.
And in grade school, they could not get email. Is that true for middle school?
So they get email, so it depends on the team, it depends on the teacher, so a lot of teachers do utilize Google Classroom, so oftentimes when something is posted in Google Classroom, they'll automatically get an email of like, Miss Craft posted, something quiz in Google
I mean,
Classroom.
from the
They
outside.
can't get email from the
From the
outside,
outside, no.
So middle school, they still cannot get
That's
email
correct.
from the outside. Okay.
So they can still use their email.
But they can email each other, friends can.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
a lot of information, and I'm sure some of you are feeling overwhelmed, we're gonna get through this together. But it really is about, I know this is especially an intimidating topic, so hopefully when Kate Cummings comes in, she can answer some of your more intricate questions about it. But we wanna start the conversation,